You didn't lose them. God removed them. And the moment you understand that difference, your life will never look the same again. I know it hurts. You replay every word, every memory, wondering what you did wrong. You think maybe you weren't enough. Maybe you loved too much. Maybe if you had just tried harder, they would have stayed. But the truth is, they were never meant to. Because what you saw as abandonment, God saw as protection. What you thought was rejection was actually redirection. He saw what you couldn't. He saw their intentions, their masks, their manipulation long before you ever did. He saw how their presence was slowly draining your purpose, dimming your light, and breaking your spirit piece by piece. And when you refused to let go, He stepped in. That's not cruelty. That's mercy. Because sometimes God's love doesn't come as comfort. It comes as removal. And I know it doesn't feel holy when it happens. It feels like betrayal, like loss, like silence. But that silence is sacred. It's the sound of divine protection at work. It's God closing a door you kept kicking open. You begged Him to fix it. He chose to free you instead, because He knew you wouldn't. And yes, you're going to grieve. You're going to cry for people who were never crying for you. You're going to wonder why the ones you loved most were allowed to walk away so easily. But one day, when the fog clears, you'll see what He saw, that they were never your blessing. They were your burden. God doesn't take without reason. He removes to reveal. He ends to protect. He breaks to rebuild. And this pain you're feeling right now, it's not punishment. It's purification. Because before God can elevate you, He has to separate you. So stop calling it loss. Start calling it alignment. They didn't leave you. God delivered you. When life rips someone away from you, it doesn't feel divine. It feels cruel. It feels personal. It feels like God turned His back on you and left you to drown in the silence they left behind. You sit there asking why. Why would a loving God allow so much pain? Why would He take away the one person who meant everything? But maybe the pain isn't proof that He's punishing you. Maybe it's proof that He's preparing you. Pain isn't always the enemy. Sometimes, it's the only language heaven can use to get your attention. Because when everything's comfortable, you stop listening. You stop growing. You stop noticing how deeply you've been depending on what was never meant to stay. The Stoics called it amor fati, love of fate, to love not just what's easy, but what's necessary, to look at loss and say, this too serves me. That doesn't mean it won't hurt. Pain is part of purification. It burns away attachment, illusion, and ego, everything that blinds you from truth. When God takes someone out of your life, He's not taking from you, He's clearing space for you. Space for peace. Space for purpose. Space for what's real. But at first, it won't feel like that. At first, it feels like a death. You'll wake up and reach for their name in your phone. You'll scroll through old messages like they're holy relics from a better time. You'll replay conversations in your mind, trying to find the moment it all broke. But the truth is, it didn't break. It expired. Because not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people come into your life as lessons, not lifetimes. They arrive to teach you what love isn't, so that one day you'll recognize what love truly is. And when that day comes, you'll thank God for every unanswered prayer, every door that slammed shut, every person who disappeared without explanation, because each one was a divine intervention in disguise. The Stoics taught that nothing truly good can be taken from a virtuous soul. What's yours by truth can never be lost, only replaced by something higher. So if it's gone, let it go. If it left, let it leave. If it ended, honor it. Then step forward. Because what you're calling punishment is actually protection from corruption. That relationship, that friendship, that situation, it was poisoning your purpose. And God, in His mercy, refused to let it kill you slowly. He tore it away because you wouldn't. He let you break, so you could finally build without what was breaking you. He knew you'd never walk away on your own. So He walked them out for you. That's not cruelty. That's divine love, the kind that saves your soul, not your comfort. So stop seeing your pain as a sentence. Start seeing it as a surgery, the kind that cuts deep, bleeds heavy, and hurts like hell, but in the end, heals what would have killed you if it stayed inside. Because God doesn't destroy, He refines. And the very fire that feels like it's burning you alive is the same one that's burning away everything that isn't meant to go where you're headed. You didn't do anything wrong. You just outgrew what wasn't right. So breathe. The pain isn't here to punish you, it's here to prepare you. And one day soon, you'll look back on this moment and realize that what you called loss was the first sign that heaven was protecting you. You keep calling it abandonment. But what if it was deliverance? What if God didn't let them walk away? What if He made them because you prayed for peace? Remember, you asked for clarity. You begged for truth. You said, God, show me who's real. And He did. You just didn't like the answer. You see, we often ask God to bless us, but rarely do we ask Him to cleanse us. And when He begins to remove what's unclean, the relationships, the attachments, the illusions, we mistake it for betrayal. But how can it be betrayal when it's protection? They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they had already taken everything they came for. Your love, your energy, your loyalty, all of it. They were never there to build with you. They were there to feed off you. And God saw it. He saw how you were dimming your own light just to make them comfortable in your glow. He saw how your empathy had turned into exhaustion, how you were trying to keep something alive that was already dead. You called it loyalty. He called it self-destruction. So He intervened. Because sometimes God's mercy comes in the form of separation. He will end what you're too afraid to walk away from. He will tear down what you keep trying to fix. He will allow people to betray you, not to break you, but to wake you. That's the truth behind their exit. It wasn't random. It was righteous. You see, God doesn't expose people to humiliate you. He exposes them to free you. He removes them because their season in your story has ended. And if He didn't close that door, you would have kept knocking, begging to be let back into your own pain. The Stoics taught that everything that happens for your good, if you can see it rightly. That means the betrayal, the silence, the goodbye. All of it is part of the divine order shaping you into who you were meant to be. Fate isn't cruel. It's corrective. It rearranges your life to match your purpose. Think about it. You prayed for peace. But peace can't coexist with poison. You asked for strength. But strength doesn't grow in comfort. You asked for truth. But truth always demands loss. So when they left, heaven wasn't punishing you, it was answering you. It just didn't come wrapped in the form you expected. Sometimes, the only way God can reveal who they are is by removing them, because as long as they stay, their presence blinds you to their nature. But when they're gone, the mask falls, and the truth stands. And that truth will hurt. It will cut deep, but it will also cleanse you. You didn't lose a soulmate. You lost a distraction. You didn't lose your destiny. You lost what was delaying it. God saw what you couldn't, and that's why they had to go. He saw their heart when you only saw their smile. He saw their manipulation while you kept confusing it with love. He saw how small you were forcing yourself to become just to be accepted by people who were never meant to sit at your table. And so, he removed them. Not because you were weak, but because you were chosen. Chosen for clarity. Chosen for growth. Chosen for something sacred that could not coexist with their chaos. The truth behind their exit is this: it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. They left so your spirit could breathe again. They walked away so your purpose could finally walk in. You saw love. God saw manipulation. You saw loyalty. God saw convenience. You saw a future. God saw a trap. That's why he stepped in. Because sometimes the eyes of the flesh can't see what the eyes of the spirit already know. You were blinded by affection, by memory, by the comfort of familiarity, and he knew that if he didn't remove them, they would destroy the very peace you prayed for. He saw what you couldn't, the hidden motives, the secret resentment, the slow decay behind their smiles. He saw how every "I love you" came with a condition, how every promise had fine print, how their presence cost you your purpose. You thought they were a blessing. He saw they were a burden disguised as one. You wanted connection. They wanted control. And the cruel part, you wouldn't have believed it even if he told you. So, instead of explaining, he revealed. He didn't whisper the truth, he showed it. Through loss. Because sometimes God doesn't speak in words. He speaks in endings. He speaks in silence. He speaks in absence. You thought you were being abandoned, but really, you were being protected. You thought you were being forgotten, but really, you were being repositioned. You thought he was ignoring your prayers, but really, he was answering them in a language your heart didn't yet understand. That's divine vision, mercy disguised as heartbreak. The Stoics understood this kind of sight. They called it perception through reason, seeing things not as you wish they were, but as they truly are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." God saw your mind clouded by emotion, desperate for belonging, and he did what you couldn't. He severed the tie before it strangled your soul, because he loves you too much to let you settle for survival. He saw that their energy was dimming your light, that you were slowly becoming smaller to fit inside their insecurities, that you were giving everything, hoping they'd give something back, but they never would. He saw you crying to him for peace at night, then waking up and walking right back into the chaos you prayed to escape. So he did the only thing left to do. He removed them. And yes, it felt violent, because divine surgery always does. He had to break your heart to save your soul. He had to take away what you wanted to give you, what you needed. That's not rejection. That's refinement. When God saw what you couldn't, he didn't ask for your permission. He acted out of protection. Because when your heart is too loyal to let go, he will use loss as the teacher. He will use silence as the surgeon. He will use distance as deliverance. So don't curse the distance. Don't question the separation. Don't mourn what was never meant for your elevation. He saw it all, the manipulation, the deceit, the energy that didn't match yours. And he said, no more. Not because you're unworthy, but because you're chosen. Chosen to see what he saw. Chosen to grow past what once held you back. Chosen to finally walk free. So the next time you wonder why he removed them, remember this: he didn't take them to hurt you. He took them to heal you. Because what you couldn't see was killing you, and what he saw was saving you. Detachment isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of clarity. It's when your faith becomes mature enough to say, if it costs my peace, it's no longer from God. The moment you let go of what's hurting you, you make space for what's meant to heal you. And that's what divine detachment truly is. Not coldness, not indifference, but wisdom wrapped in faith. Because sometimes God's protection doesn't come as walls or warnings. It comes as distance. It comes as silence. It comes as endings you didn't choose, but desperately needed. You thought you were holding on out of love, but what if that love was slowly killing you? What if God wasn't punishing you, but preparing you? He saw how your peace was breaking just to keep the connection alive. He saw how your energy was bleeding into people who only came to take. He saw how you were confusing suffering with loyalty. And when you wouldn't stop giving, he made you stop receiving. That's divine detachment, when heaven interferes to save you from yourself. The Stoics knew this truth long before we could name it. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. That's exactly what God does. He frees you from what you can't control, even when you're still praying to keep it. He removes what you're not strong enough to release, because he knows it's not alignment, it's attachment. And attachment is the opposite of faith. Faith says, even if it leaves, I'll still be okay. Attachment says, I can't live without it. And God will always choose your freedom over your comfort. That's why he'll close doors you're still knocking on. That's why he'll end relationships you're still romanticizing. That's why he'll separate you from people you swear you need, because you don't see the poison yet, but he does. And when he takes them away, you'll feel the withdrawal. You'll mistake detachment for loneliness. You'll confuse peace with emptiness. Because you've been addicted to chaos for so long, that stillness feels like loss. But give it time. Stillness is not the absence of love, it's the recovery of it. It's you remembering who you are without all the noise. And that's the beauty of divine detachment. It returns you to yourself. It teaches you how to love without losing your center, how to care without collapsing, how to stay open without being consumed. Because peace doesn't mean nothing hurts. It means nothing controls you anymore. God's protection doesn't always look like blessings. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like the text that never came, the door that never reopened, the person who never apologized. And that's okay, because the silence that follows removal is not rejection, it's realignment. So stop asking why they left. Start thanking God they couldn't stay, because if their absence brought you peace, their presence was never love. It was a lesson. The Stoic path and the spiritual path meet here in the understanding that to let go is not to lose, but to trust. Detachment isn't the end of love. It's the purification of it. It's the kind of love that doesn't cling, doesn't beg, doesn't fear. It releases because it believes. That's divine detachment. That's how God protects his chosen, not by surrounding them with comfort, but by stripping away everything that keeps them from peace. You thought it was love. That's why you held on so tightly. That's why you prayed for them, cried for them, begged for one more chance, even when everything inside you knew it was breaking you. But love isn't supposed to feel like dying slowly. It's not supposed to drain your joy, silence your soul, or make you question your worth. That wasn't love, that was poison. And God saw it long before you did. You called it loyalty. He called it self-destruction. You called it connection. He called it control. You called it soulmates. He called it spiritual suffocation. They didn't love you, they used you. They fed on your kindness, mistook your patience for weakness, and called your silence submission. They never saw your value, only your vulnerability. They weren't your mirror, they were your mask. And every time you tried to walk away, they found a way to pull you back, not because they cared, but because your light filled the emptiness they refused to face within themselves. That's not love. That's dependency disguised as devotion. Love, as God designed it, should lift you, not cage you. It should water your soul, not drain it dry. It should teach you peace, not make you beg for it. But you forgot that. You confused being needed with being valued. You confused being chosen with being chained. And so, God stepped in. He saw how your prayers were turning into pleas. He saw how you were worshipping people who only wanted to be served, not seen. He saw how you mistook their inconsistency for passion and their cruelty for misunderstanding. So he tore it apart, not to punish you, but to purify you. He ended what you kept calling love, because he knew it was killing the very love he planted inside you, the love meant for yourself, for your purpose, for the future he's building with you. The Stoics said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." You were living in a fantasy, clinging to an image of who they could be, not who they were. You fell in love with potential, not truth. And God knew that truth was the only medicine strong enough to save you. That's why he let it collapse. That's why he let you see their real face, cold, selfish, indifferent. Because he wanted you to wake up. He wanted you to realize that love isn't supposed to hurt this much. That love without respect is manipulation. And love without peace is bondage. You thought he took your happiness, but what he really did was remove your poison. And yes, withdrawal hurts. Letting go of toxic love feels like losing air, but it's not suffocation. It's detox. It's your soul learning to breathe without dependency. God saw how much you gave to people who only took. He saw you bleeding for those who wouldn't even stay to help you heal. So, he stopped it. He stopped them. And now, here you are confused, broken, but free. It doesn't feel like freedom yet, because you still crave what hurt you. That's how strong the poison was. But in time, the craving fades. The fog clears. The heart begins to see clearly again. One day, you'll look back and realize what you called love was really a lesson in disguise. It showed you how to guard your peace, how to value your energy, how to discern what's real. And you'll finally thank God for the heartbreak that saved you, because it wasn't rejection, it was redemption. It wasn't punishment, it was protection. He didn't destroy your heart. He detoxed it. He removed what you thought you needed, so you could remember what you actually deserve. That's the truth. What you lost was never love. It was the poison you kept drinking, until God finally knocked the cup from your hands. Every loss carries a message, but most people never hear it because they're too busy mourning what was taken to understand what was taught. You've spent nights replaying every moment, wondering what you could have done differently. You've questioned your worth, your timing, even your faith. But what if this wasn't about what you lost? What if it was about what you were meant to learn? You see, God doesn't waste pain. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every unanswered prayer, they all carry divine instruction. He teaches through removal, through silence, through endings that hurt more than words can describe. Because sometimes, the only way to wake up a sleeping soul is through the shock of loss. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Loss is friction. It grinds away what's false, what's fragile, what's built on illusion, until all that remains is truth. The truth about who you are, the truth about what you deserve, the truth about what you've been tolerating for far too long. That's the hidden lesson. What left was never meant to stay. And what stayed too long was blocking your growth. You were praying for strength, so God gave you struggle. You were praying for wisdom, so He gave you loss. You were praying for clarity, so He removed confusion in the form of people, because clarity often comes through absence, when the noise fades, when the faces disappear. When the conversations end, you finally hear the voice that matters, your own. You keep calling it loneliness. But what if it's not loneliness at all? What if it's alignment? God clearing the stage so you can finally meet yourself again. This is where you begin to see the difference between what hurts and what harms. Hurt can heal you, harm cannot. God allows pain with purpose, but he never allows destruction without redemption. That's why the loss didn't kill you. It corrected you. It taught you boundaries. It taught you discernment. It taught you how to stop chasing what drains you and start nurturing what sustains you. The Stoics would call that self-governance, the ability to rule your own emotions instead of being ruled by them. Because every time you choose peace over reaction, you reclaim authority over your life. You begin to understand that loss is not the opposite of love, it's the teacher of it. It's how you learn the difference between attachment and connection, between desire and destiny. Look at how far you've come. You thought the pain would destroy you, but it built you. You thought their absence would empty you, but it freed you. You thought you'd never smile again, and yet, somehow, you do. Because strength is not born from comfort. It's born from surrender, from letting go of what you wanted and trusting that what's next will make sense in time. That's the divine paradox. The very thing that broke you also built you. The very loss that crushed you became the soil where your wisdom grew. So stop asking, why did this happen to me? Start asking, what did this teach me? And when you finally answer that question, you'll realize the loss was never punishment. It was preparation. It was the divine curriculum for your next chapter. Because God never subtracts without the intention to multiply. Pain has a purpose. It's the toll you pay for truth. And truth, real truth, is never cheap. You prayed for clarity, didn't you? You asked God to show you the truth about people, about love, about your purpose. And he did. But he didn't reveal it in comfort. He revealed it through pain, because pain is the only teacher the heart cannot ignore. When you're comfortable, you stay blind. When you're broken, you finally see. The Stoics understood this long before you or I ever could. Epictetus said, "Suffering arises not from events, but from our judgment about them." In other words, pain itself doesn't destroy you, your resistance to it does. And that's why God allows the breaking, not to ruin you, but to reveal you, to strip away illusions you kept worshipping, to make you see clearly what your heart refused to admit. You see, clarity costs comfort, and that's the part nobody tells you. You can't see the truth about someone and still keep your fantasy. You can't grow in wisdom and still cling to your blindness. You can't walk into peace while holding on to poison. God knew that, so he let the pain in, not to punish you, but to wake you up. He watched you keep loving people who drained you. He watched you pray for signs while ignoring the ones he already sent. He watched you defend people who kept wounding you, thinking love meant enduring misery. And when you wouldn't let go, he allowed the pain to teach you what peace could not. That's divine discipline, not punishment, but purification, because nothing refines the soul like fire. Nothing clarifies the heart like heartbreak. Pain has a strange way of sharpening your vision. It burns away delusion. It forces you to see people as they are, not as you imagine them to be. And it humbles you to realize that what you thought was love might have just been attachment, that what you called loyalty might have been fear of being alone. It hurts. Oh, it hurts deeply, but it's honest. And honesty is what sets you free. The Stoics taught that we must love fate, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. That's amor fati. the acceptance of everything life gives, even the pain, especially the pain because within it lies transformation. So, when God allows you to feel the sting of loss, it's not cruelty, it's calibration. He's aligning you with truth. He's teaching you to stop reaching for what cuts you. He's teaching you to recognize peace by contrast, because you can't appreciate the light until you've lived through the dark. You see, pain is like divine surgery. It cuts what you can't see, removes what you'd never let go of on your own. And while it hurts in the moment, one day you'll look back and realize it didn't kill you, it cleansed you. It didn't end you, it initiated you. It turned you from someone who needed others to feel whole into someone who can stand alone, calm, wise, complete. That's the price of clarity, and it's worth every tear. Because clarity gives you freedom, freedom from false love, false peace, false belonging, freedom to walk in truth, even when it's lonely. So when your heart aches, when the nights feel heavy, when you wonder why God allowed it to hurt this much, remember this: He's not breaking you. He's unblinding you. Pain isn't the enemy. It's the passage. And the only way to reach wisdom is to walk through it. You thought you were alone. You thought when they walked away, God walked away too. You thought He left you in the ruins, watching you fall apart without mercy. But the truth is, He was right there, the whole time, silent, still, present. He wasn't ignoring you. He was protecting you in ways you couldn't yet understand. You see, when God wants to move you into your next chapter, He doesn't always send blessings. Sometimes He sends endings. And in those endings, it feels like abandonment. But that emptiness you feel, that's not God leaving. That's Him clearing space. He took them away, not because you were unworthy, but because they were unprepared. They couldn't walk with you where you're going. They couldn't carry the weight of your purpose. And if He hadn't removed them, you would have stayed stuck, small, blind to your own potential, still trying to convince people to love you when it was never their assignment to do so. The Stoics said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And they were right, because most of your pain didn't come from the loss itself. It came from what you imagined the loss meant. You imagined that being left meant you weren't enough. You imagined that silence meant you were forgotten. You imagined that the emptiness meant God stopped caring. But none of that was true. The silence wasn't rejection, it was divine communication. The emptiness wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The distance wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. You were being repositioned, even while you thought you were being destroyed. Think about it. If they hadn't left, you'd still be watering dead plants. If they hadn't betrayed you, you'd still be offering your loyalty to people who saw you as an option. If they hadn't ignored you, you'd still be chasing validation instead of cultivating peace. God's absence wasn't absence at all, it was disguise. He hid His hand so you could learn faith. He hid His voice so you could discover your own, because the kind of strength He was building in, you couldn't be built in comfort. It could only be forged in solitude. That's why the quiet moments hurt so much, because they were sacred. They weren't empty, they were holy ground. That's where you learned to stand on your own. That's where you learn to pray. Not for people, but for peace. That's where you learned that the only approval you ever needed was His. The Stoic in you calls it self-reliance. The believer in you calls it faith. But they're the same thing, trusting what you cannot see. And knowing that even when everything falls apart, you are still being guided. You were never abandoned. You were protected. You were being hidden from people who couldn't value your heart, shielded from paths that would have destroyed your spirit. You thought you were being buried, but God was planting you. He was letting the silence teach you discipline. He was letting the isolation grow your wisdom. He was letting the pain shape your purpose. And now, as you start to rise, you'll realize that every unanswered prayer was God's way of saying, "Trust me, not them." So stop calling it loneliness. Start calling it preparation. You weren't left behind. You were set apart. Everything starts inside. The healing, the peace, the strength you're looking for, it's not out there. It's been inside you this whole time, waiting for the silence to bring it to the surface. You've spent so long trying to rebuild your life around people, around what you lost, around the image of who you used to be. But you can't rebuild on ashes. You have to build on truth. And the truth is this: what left you didn't destroy you, it exposed you. It showed you the cracks in your foundation, the places where you depended too much on others, where your worth was tied to their validation. That's where the rebuilding begins, in the places where you once broke. The Stoics taught that we must build our inner citadel, a fortress of calm, reason, and strength that no chaos can penetrate. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is that moment for you. This is where you stop trying to control what's gone and start mastering what remains: your thoughts, your discipline, your peace. Because the person you're becoming isn't born in comfort. They're forged in the fire. You've been through the storm. You've seen what betrayal feels like, what absence feels like, what silence feels like, and yet you're still here. That means you're already stronger than you realize. You're proof that loss cannot kill what was built by faith. Now it's time to build differently. This time, you build slowly, with boundaries, not desperation, with peace, not people-pleasing, with self-worth, not self-sacrifice. You stop explaining yourself to those who never listened. You stop seeking closure from those who never gave clarity. You stop chasing love in places that only offered control. Instead, you turn inward. You build your inner world so solid that nothing external can shake it. Because when your peace no longer depends on their presence, that's freedom. When your worth no longer depends on their validation, that's mastery. And when your happiness no longer depends on what you have, but on who you've become, that's spiritual evolution. God didn't remove them to leave you empty. He removed them to make room for your foundation. You are not rebuilding to become who you were before. You're rebuilding to become who you were always meant to be. You'll start to notice it soon, how solitude no longer feels heavy, how silence starts to feel sacred, how peace becomes your default instead of chaos. That's when you'll know you've rebuilt correctly, when your inner world becomes untouchable. And here's the divine paradox: you'll stop needing what you once thought you couldn't live without. You'll stop missing the noise and start cherishing the quiet. You'll stop seeking closure because you'll realize you were the closure all along. This is what God wanted to show you, that everything you were searching for in them was always waiting for you, in you. So rebuild, not from memory, but from meaning, not from fear, but from faith. Because once you master the inner world, the outer world rearranges itself to match your peace. That's the Stoic way. That's divine alignment. And that's how true rebuilding begins, not in the world around you, but in the soul within you. You survived the fire. You walked through the betrayal, the loss, the silence, and you made it out. Maybe not untouched, but unbroken. The scars you carry aren't signs of weakness. They're proof that you were chosen to endure what would have destroyed others. Because while they were busy playing games, you were learning lessons. While they were chasing attention, you were building resilience. And while they walked away, you walked deeper into your purpose. That's freedom, the kind that's born after the fire. See, the fire was never sent to burn you. It was sent to reveal what couldn't be burned: your faith, your discipline, your quiet strength. Everything false fell away. Everything real remained. And now, you stand lighter, not because you lost something, but because you were freed from what was never meant to stay. This is where you finally understand: God didn't punish you by removing them. He promoted you by doing it. He took away what was temporary to make space for what's eternal. He ended what was draining you to prepare you for what's meant to sustain you. You see, when you stop clinging to what's gone, you make room for what's divine. And the moment you surrender, truly surrender, everything that's meant for you finds its way to you effortlessly. That's not coincidence. That's divine order. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." And that's exactly what your pain has done. It became the path. It led you home, back to yourself, back to peace, back to God. Freedom isn't about having everything go right. It's about being unshaken when things go wrong. It's about knowing that no loss can steal your purpose, and no betrayal can erase your value. You've learned that silence is not emptiness, it's protection. That endings are not failures, they're foundations. And that people leaving is not rejection, it's redirection. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're responding from wisdom. You're no longer desperate for connection. You're content in solitude. That's what spiritual maturity feels like: peace that doesn't need proof. And when those same people who left you start watching you rise, don't seek revenge. Don't gloat. Just smile quietly. Because your growth is the only answer they'll ever need. Your peace is the karma they can't escape. And your silence, your calm, radiant silence, is the echo of divine justice at work. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to prove your worth. You already did by surviving. They thought walking away would break you. Instead, it awakened you. They thought you'd collapse. Instead, you rebuilt. And now, the same fire that once consumed you is the light that guides you. So when you look back, don't curse the fire. Thank it. It showed you what's real. It purified what's fake. And it introduced you to someone extraordinary yourself. Because the truth is, you never really lost anything. You just shed what wasn't aligned. And now, you are free, not in the way the world defines freedom, but in the way the soul understands it. Freedom from attachment, freedom from illusion, freedom from needing what was never meant for you. This is your peace. This is your power. This is your divine reward, freedom after the fire. So now you understand what felt like loss was protection, what looked like rejection was redirection, and what broke you was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you. God saw what you couldn't. He saw the hands that pretended to hold you but were quietly hurting you. He saw the words that sounded sweet but carried poison. He saw the love that looked loyal but was built on lies. So he stepped in. He took what you couldn't let go of because he knew it would one day take you down with it. And yes, it hurt. It broke you wide open. But that breaking, that silence, that emptiness became the birthplace of your strength. Now you stand taller, calmer, wiser. You no longer beg for peace, you are peace. You no longer chase love, you embody love. And you no longer ask for clarity, you live in it. Because what they took was temporary. What God gave you in return is eternal. So stop replaying the past. It already served its purpose. You're walking into something new now, a chapter that doesn't require your pain to prove your power. You've done your healing. Now it's time to live it. This calm, grounded, unshakable version of you is the one God was trying to reveal all along. You didn't lose them. You found yourself, and that's the real miracle. If this message spoke to you, don't scroll away in silence. Take a deep breath and remind yourself, God didn't take them to hurt me. He took them to heal me. Drop a "I trust his plan" in the comments if you're finally ready to stop questioning the loss and start walking in faith. And if you're walking this path of quiet strength and divine alignment, subscribe to Think Stoic 101, where we turn pain into wisdom, silence into strength, and heartbreak into purpose. Because remember, God doesn't remove to break you. He removes to rebuild you. And your story is just beginning.